Hello, everybody. It's Heather with the Leadership at Heart podcast. And I am thrilled today to have Chris Gherardini on the podcast with me. He was referred, so you all know that people they're either handpicked by me or they're referred from current guests on the show. And very occasionally I say yes to people who are sent over by like a PR firm or whatever. And Chris is one of those. And it's because I was really interested. I love the name of his company, number one, and just interested in more about him. And I think you all will find that he's going to add so much to the Leadership at Heart community. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Heather.
So tell me where you are right now. Tell us a little bit more about what you do and your leadership journey.
Sure. So I started my company about 27 years ago. And so today my Turnkey is a Microsoft Dynamics partner. And so what we do is we sell and implement accounting software, ERP and CRM software across the US. So we go in and help businesses replace their legacy business systems and automate their financials and operations and supply chain and help them become more efficient, more profitable, and deliver better experiences to their workers and their customers. So pretty fun,
Awesome.
Pretty fun gig. So
I am curious to know what, because I can just imagine what might be like a funny story that you can think of helping like during an implementation, maybe even in the early days when you first started. Was there kind of a funny story or anything that you can think of?
There are lots of funny stories, and we changed the names to protect the innocent, but
yes.
I don't know if you want one of those examples. It was in a project where we met a company and we were trying to analyze their needs, and so it always starts with requirements. And they started saying, "Well, we have all this cash in all these banks all over the Caribbean." And I said, "Okay, well, how much cash?" They go, "Oh, 250 million." We're like, "Okay, well, and how much accounts payable?" 200,000. So the disproportionate nature of the cash in the banking, and we're like, "Yeah, sure, we can automate money laundering." So that was a funny story. We didn't actually win that deal, but the businesses that people are trying to conduct and they all need a better tool to manage all of these things going on. But that was a funny one. And I tell that everybody goes, "Really? They had that much cash?" We're like, "Oh my gosh." So,
oh my gosh,
funny things we run into, but
I'd be laying on the Caribbean right now if I had that much cash in my business, right? I'd be laying there. I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be like, someone else is going to have to run that show.
Yeah, that was a funny one though.
So I am curious, those who you have over 50 people in your company that are spread about, what would they say about you as a leader? Like, how would they describe you as a leader?
Engaging, forward thinking, open, again, empathetic. So there's a few things you might get out of me. And again, part of that's based on my experiences and part of that's based on the culture that I've built here with the organization. So hopefully I'd hear some of those things. Like I said, I hear comments from competitors that are positive as well. So it's nice to get inbound comments where like, good, at least the perception of what we're doing here is working well. And that we really do try to measure up to that point. So.
Oh, that's good. I want to dig a little deeper because you said something like, based upon my previous experience, I'm curious to know, is there something that's in your background that makes you more of an empathetic person?
Sure. A personal tragedy. So, I was sick back in 2018, and boy, that sure does give you the wake up call. Showed up at the beginning of 2018, they tell you have the big C, and you're like, oh, okay. It changes you, and it changes the way you think about people, and even in the organization. We pay for short-term and long-term disability where, there's a point where I'm like, well, why isn't people taking this? They go, well, they got to pay for it. I'm like, well, give it to them. Everybody needs that. So it changed my perspectives on benefits to workers and supporting people when they go through their own hardships and stuff. So, it's empathy. It really gives you a different perspective. But anyway, I survived it. I have a whole lot of energy and attitude because of that as well. So.
Oh, well, you look great. And so one of the things I'd say is you did more than express empathy. You expressed, it was compassion in action. You were compassionate leader because so the empathy came from like understanding and sensing their needs, and you were in their shoes because you know what it's like. But at the same time, you took action. There's plenty of organizations who could empathize with their team members and never do anything about it.
Yeah, we took
But
action.
You did something about it by saying, let's just give it to them, which is that step further, which is that kind of caring leadership trait, that compassionate leadership in action. Again, talking about care, talking about leading the heart is one thing. It's actually the doing that makes all the difference. And so, kudos to you for actually taking those steps. So I'm curious to know, where does your drive to lead come from? Where did it all start?
I don't know. We joke about that. And part of it is, I'm an engineer that grew up in a public accounting firm, and it's my ideas versus theirs. And I think that, when you build up enough confidence in yourself, you've got to go try it so you don't have regret and remorse. And so part of that's what drives me. And even today, I'm still going because I tell my father, I go, I'm not finished yet. I'm still refining and optimizing and tweaking and tweening, and it's an iterative process for me, but it was just that even 27 years ago. So I thought I could do it better. And I thought I got to go prove that. And And then again, you evolve and you refine along the way. But that still drives me today, that I'm still not done optimizing Turnkey. So
Oh, I love that. I love this idea of the engineer inside the public accounting firm, because
it's
I
the
bet you that
oil
was,
in their water. And they don't like
whew,
that either because
whew.
the oil's on top of the water. Hey, anyways.
Oh God, but even those two together, you're thinking like, okay, the bead counters and the people who are like, yeah, highly technical, yeah, all of that together. I'm thinking, and then people say, well, can engineers or people in accounting like be heart-based people? And I would say, like, it might be harder for them for people who are engineers to exhibit the empathy or express some of these things that we may think of as soft. But in the end, like you just gave us an example of, there was an expression of true care in action. And it is the action that makes a difference. I bet you your people were like, what is he about to do? He's going to like, we don't have to pay for this anymore.
It's
I'm
not an
curious to know,
expensive,
what was their
it's not
feedback?
yeah, but it's not an expensive benefit, but it's one of those things that everybody needs it because they're like, when they need a short-term disability and they didn't pay that $12 a month or whatever, it's kind of stupid because then
Mhm.
so it was just me saying, forget it, you need it, let's do it. And
Yeah,
I don't think there
exactly.
was a big reaction. Everybody's like, okay, great. No, and we pay
Nice.
100% of the workers medical and part of the family plans. And so we've always been pretty bullish on good benefits. And that was just one that I felt like, just put it in there. People
Nice.
shouldn't have a
That's
choice.
awesome.
They need those types of coverages because they can't plan when something's going to show up that might interrupt them. So anyway,
What's been the craziest thing that's happened to you during this pandemic, given the fact that everybody is spread about? Is there anything interesting you'd like to share in that regard?
I'm thinking crazy. I mean, the world changed obviously for everybody, and our world, we're all remote now. I mean, I own this office building where I'm sitting, and there's a handful of people that still report here, but everybody's remote. And the craziness is, I think my leadership team is now across the U.S. I talk about Minnesota, Atlanta, Virginia, Seattle, St. Louis. We're the four corners of the U.S., which a year ago, everybody was relocating to St. Louis. So that's kind of crazy, but at the same time, we've evolved very efficiently and effectively. So, but other than that, there's been nothing that's been real dramatic. My family's been safe and healthy and so forth, and businesses continue to function very, very well. So
Oh, good.
can't complain.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always, so I'm assuming everybody, what you have is what you're keeping with. You're not going to say everybody's required to do this and everybody's required to do that. You're saying like, this has worked well. No reason to fix it's not broken. No need to tweak it, as you talked about earlier. It's
No,
good.
we're tweaking a little bit, but at the same time, remote policies but what we are doing is focused on the culture. We're bringing people in. So we've got a big group. We're bringing everybody into St. Louis the third week of May, because that's the thing that you lose in a remote environment is you don't build those bonds of trust because, right, you're not eating, you're not drinking, you're not talking about stuff you do. You show up for your video call, you talk about the topic and everybody disbands. And guess what? We don't advance our abilities to collaborate and build trust with each other. So that's a big focus point on the people side. That's it. That's the only negative on remote work is you don't get that closeness that people need to be comfortable and to trust each other when they're working together. Like, I got your back. I know you got my back, right? So if you think about those things, and it just takes time to develop those. So
I gotta tell you, I'm geeking out a little bit. Those who listen to my show know this. I'm totally geeking out. Again, it's not lost on me that an engineer is talking about like connection and collaboration and uh, closeness. I love it. I just love it.
So IT, I mean, it's IT, but yeah, I was engineering, computer science, and math back in the
Yeah,
accounting.
still the same. It's
It
the same
is.
difference.
Well, you go back to introverts and extroverts, and yeah, I have
Yes.
IT professionals and accountants and the accounting firm, and they're all. Yeah, you're right. We know a lot of introverts, but anyway, it's
And it's
important
usually a
stuff.
mashup. I always tell people I'm being obviously very stereotypical in that regard because there's a lot of people. I mean, I know engineers who are, but I have coached a lot of folks that are kind of the engineer tech space, and I can see why they might need like some of the help on the people side. Let's just put it that way. But it's good. It warms my heart to hear that. So I'm curious to know: is there ever been a time when maybe maybe it was before the cancer, but where you just weren't the most enlightened leader? You weren't as heart-centered or didn't lead as much with the people focused. And what, if there was that time, describe it in detail if you can. And then what did you do to come out of it, just to become more enlightened? And again, maybe it was cancer. I would just like to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't related to the cancer, but I think as you look at people, and I think where I let myself down in reflection is tolerance. Maybe I was too tolerant of bad elements in the organization. And you think about, everybody looks for my example and for me to make those hard decisions. And when you let somebody exist that's toxic, or it's just, you get it. It's just that if there's a toxic person, you let them exist. and you don't deal with the situation on a timely basis, what do you create? A fallout. So that's my own fault. And so, and they're hard decisions, and you're like, oh, it's not that bad. But I think we know in today's society that when we find out that there's somebody that's a bad element, we have to deal with it. So there's my only flaw. And part of that is just me having the confidence that, look, the organization is bigger than any one individual. And if somebody really doesn't fit, take action. And if you can't correct them, or you can't get them to self-correct, then they got to leave. And that's probably the biggest flaw historically I reflect on, is my hanging on to people that I should have cut loose much sooner. And that's my bad. And, how do you develop that? It's time, it's confidence, it's getting leadership support. So, if you don't have a good peer group, you're right. Are you making all the decisions on your own? But if you've got peer support and you have people that weigh in, yeah, that is the right decision. You've got to separate, even though it could be a great producer, could be your best producer, but they're the most toxic. But that's my reflection on, like I said, my past situation. And I kind of grew into becoming more confident about just making those decisions. And
did you ever like seek out a coach or anything? Have you ever had an executive coach or anything?
I do now. I'm actually joined Vistage a year ago. In fact, my Vistage coach comes in here after this session here. But
nice.
But I joined a peer group for that point, is because we always talk about we're in the box. Well, we don't have all the answers in the box. So now I leave the box and I get ideas and I bring them back in the box. And so the Vistage group I got 14 CEOs that I can vet out lots of hard topics, and they do the same thing on a lot of it. And a lot of it's personnel. A lot of it's the human capital conversations that are the more difficult. Transactional, debits, credits, that's easy stuff. But the people are the tough part of the business, and really learning how to optimize their outcomes as well as your own simultaneously. So.
I love even the language you use. Again, it's funny when you hear different people talk about this people stuff, right? It does depend on our lens and where we come from. And that engineering language, I'm reflecting back on all the engineers I've coached and thinking about this idea of like levers and triggers and tweaking and just like all of this stuff. Like, how do we do that with people, trying to figure them out? And what's the interesting thing is you just figure out that we are so dang complex. You want to peel the onion back and you can't get it peeled far enough back to really get to it, right? I mean, even with you, I could probably sit here for hours and not even scratch the surface, right? Because it's all about spending time with people to get to know them. And so this idea that you talked about, bringing people in, it's like, I got to get like elbow to elbow, even with a mask on, whatever that means, right? I got to get close. I got to figure out, I got to sense it. I got to watch you. And you can't see all the body language and all, right? You just can't see all that.
It's true. It's hard. And the young population coming into the workforce, they have the bigger challenge because they need to mimic. Think about mimicking behavior. You learn how to speak at a very young age by mimicking. If you don't sit next to a professional, my tenure in a public accounting firm, boy, I mimicked and I stole everything that they had. I tell you, had I not had that experience, I wouldn't have it. But people are missing that, so it is a big deal. And you're right, elbow to elbow. I had another story. I've got a project management director. She'd been with me 10 months and we'd never met. I'm like, we got to get in the same room. And it went good. We did a trip to Atlanta last month and we put everybody together for 2 days. There were 7 of us, and a lot of eating, a lot of drinking, a lot of socializing. I tell people it's a little bit like a Jerry Springer show at the beginning. Not really, but it's comedic value, but it was good. But coming out of that, everybody's really good and has a good basis to continue to work stronger together, I think is what I saw from that. So I was so happy there. I said, let's do the May event and let's bring everybody. And we've got not to give a plug to Top Golf, but we're doing a Top Golf event for all the workers, and everybody's so excited that we got 99.9% attendance. So that's good.
Nice. Oh, that's going to be so fun.
That'd be fun.
I love that. I'm trying to figure out what to do with my tiny team too. We're going to do we're going to order lunch for everybody. And then we're just going to do remote because we're in different states too. We're just going to do remote for now. But I like that. I like the idea of
find a destination. Let's all meet in Florida. I don't know.
I love it. That's a huge possibility, particularly now because I have both my shots. So
I just got my second one this morning. So.
Oh, okay. I can't wait to see how that goes tonight.
See how I feel tomorrow. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you been sick for the last 2 days? No. Well, you will be tomorrow. No.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just wait. I'll reach back out to you later. So I hear now how you connect with people. Now, for those who are listening now, I mean, you've given some really good tips, whether they're newbies or they're more leaders that are more seasoned. What might be a couple pearls of wisdom you'd lead them with as it relates to, particularly carrying leadership, leading with heart right now during this time? What might be a couple pearls of wisdom you think that would be good for them?
Well, part of it is to understand your people. I mean, you really got to get, and when people aren't as transparent as they need to be, but can you get that intel without TMI type of stuff? But knowing your workers, knowing their challenges, knowing what's going on in their lives outside the office does give you some better perspectives on that. And I think the other thing is the flexibility in programs. You know, I've got people that want to come here because we don't mandate you got to be in the office. Well, okay, we'd like you to be here, but you don't have to be here. But I think that flexibility is another great trait to have. And a lot of people are rigid. They think, oh no, I can't, you know, but you can. And if you really do the math on it, maybe it's better actually. You get better outcomes by having a little more flexibility. And again, by knowing your workers and knowing what they're dealing with, it helps you. You want to come earlier, come later. And like I said, where are you geographically? So there's that flexibility, I think, is can really differentiate you as well. Can really
Now listen, everybody, again, not lost on me. Hopefully it's not lost on you as a still Matt, IT engineer, technology engineer, still engineer telling us to be flexible. So let's just remember that if he can think that, we definitely can think that too. And we need to be more flexible with our people during this time as we try to transition with a hybrid workplace or remote or whatever we're doing here. We have to be flexible. We have to let them know that we care and that we're with them. Well, Chris, this has been great. I really appreciate this time for sure with us. And I know everybody's going to learn a lot. I've been taking some notes myself.
Good stuff.
It's been wonderful. So for those who are listening and found great value in this, please do make sure that you rate it, you know, give a 5-star review here on Apple Podcasts, and make sure you share it far and wide. All this stuff, this is good stuff. And there's something different here. When we get the leaders who are admitting to the place where they're not so perfect, that's where the brilliance is revealed. So make sure that you share it far and wide. And again, just thank you again, Chris, for being such an amazing guest. And we will get this out and about, and everybody will be sharing it, and they'll learn about you and all of that awesomeness that you have.
I appreciate the opportunity, Heather. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining the Leadership with Heart podcast. Be well.